Coogs House. The Houston Cougars are going to do it. They're going to start off Big 12 play 1-0, and here's how.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, and whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making it your first listen each and every day. If you want to join in the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. If forced to eat Cincinnati-style chili, what you would have it on. Because yesterday, Jeff told us you can put it on like hot dogs and French fries and chips and all kinds of other stuff. What would you put your chili on? I'm hoping for things more exotic than a hot dog, but we shall see. This show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports, but we got more on that fun later, but we need to make sure we break down this game. I want to talk some about what's at stake in the Houston-Cincinnati game, because I don't think it's getting looked at as this game with high stakes, but it has them. I'll talk about a handful of matchups to keep an eye on and how they'll help decide this game. But first and foremost, I want to get into what it takes for Houston to win this game. What has to happen, what the has to happen kind of things are for Houston to win this game, because it's Friday, and I always talk myself into Houston winning. I don't care if they're playing the 85 Bears. By Friday, I've talked myself into Houston winning the football game. Now, this was not as hard as talking us into winning the 85 Bears. Cincinnati's a good opponent, not the 85 Bears, kind of a good opponent. And I think Houston's really got to do three key things in this game to win. I think the first and foremost, most obvious thing everyone analyzing this game has talked about is Houston has to find a way to establish the run. Now, defense coordinator Tyson Vate over there at Cincinnati is running a 3-3-5 stack defense predicated largely on a dominant nose tackle and Dante Corleone. Guy's a future pro. He's good. He's good. But the 3-3-5 has natural holes and windows in it. And when I say 3-3-5, as opposed to a 3-4 or a 4-3 defense, they have three down linemen, typically lined up, head up on the center, head up on the tackles, and three linebackers who base alignment is just stacked right behind 4 yards off the ball of those defensive linemen. They do move stuff around and they do fold stuff around and they do utilize a bunch of different safeties in the box and stuff like that to mix stuff up. But that's the base. And it's really a defense that was popular in like the height of pass first modern college football. And it's really interesting because it was frankly pretty good at slowing that down. And the counter that you've seen to it has been running the football. And so my first thing that has to happen for Houston to win this game is Houston has to find a way to establish the run. There are natural gaps in there. You can widen splits and force a wide B gap for power game. There are cutbacks for zone. We talked a lot on Monday, I believe it was, about the way Houston's been effectively running a concept called the split zone play. They ran it for over 30 of their 42 running snaps last week. That, I think, should be a fairly effective cutback play against this defense and really make reads off of where that hyper-aggressive nose tackle flows to. Once they do that, it'll spin safeties into the box, open up all kinds of other concepts, get the ball into Houston's athletes on the perimeter in one-on-one situations. And bluntly, Houston's got better athletes outside than Cincinnati does. When Houston's got the ball, they have a gigantic advantage with their receivers, whether it's Manjack or Boogie or Marquise or anybody, frankly. Houston's got a great advantage out there on the perimeter. I think you could see a Jonah Wilson over the top ball early if they start creeping those safeties down in the first quarter. I mean, it really is that kind of an advantage on the outside. They just got to get those safeties in the box to take advantage of it. And the way to do that's going to be establishing the run. It's also, frankly, what we've seen in the most successful offensive game the Houston's had this year. It's what we've seen them do, right? I think another thing Houston has to do to win this game is they've got to make a play early. This is an 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff, so body clock. It's going to be early for the kids playing, right? It's in Cincinnati. And again, we talk with Jeff. It's not like this is Death Valley. It's not Tuscaloosa. It's not the big house, but it is a strong home field environment. It's frankly the only Big 12 game that Cincinnati won a year ago. And so their fans are expecting a good performance. Do something early, offense, defense, special teams, whatever it may be. Special teams be great. Whatever it may be, though, do something early to silence the crowd. A big sack, an explosive play, right? A big hit, like something that takes them out of it early, right? And kind of neutralize it to give you a more calm environment. And don't let that crowd creep back into it after the fact, right? Making that play early is going to be really, really important. I told y'all I lucked into having a really good high school football coach, and that's probably why I'm a teacher and coach these days. But he was always talking about in Saturday Film how you don't know when it's happening, but over the course of a football game, 6 plays decide a football. Every game gets decided by about 6 plays. And the crazy part about football is we can't tell you as the ball is about to get snapped whether or not that's going to be one of those 6 plays. So you got to play, 100%, 110% effort every play because you don't know if that's going to be one of those 6 or not. That was the gist of the speech. In this game, I feel fairly certain in saying one of those 6 plays will happen in the first quarter. It'll be a momentum establishing referendum on the game. We'll look back and be like, man, that time that Michael Batten had the gigantic sack on the 3rd drive or the second series or whatever. Like, we'll talk about that after that. Houston's got to make a play early and make it count and ride it from there. And the last but not least, obviously, the biggest thing in slowing down the Cincinnati offense, which is a very highly touted offense at this point in college football, schedule aside, is slowing down Corey Kiner. Corey's had a pretty strong start to the season as a running back. I remember last year he kind of ran all over Houston. And I do feel somewhat like, honestly, well, they might not use him enough outside of the Houston matchup. Him having so much success last year, even with new coordinators and new players and so on, kind of makes me feel like they're going to come back to him. He's got 48 carries on the year, 326 yards. If you're a math person, that's 6.8 yards per carry. That's really good. And so Houston's going to have to find ways to bottle him up and make Cincinnati look to distribute the ball elsewhere on their touches, whether it's running the ball with someone else. Quarterback Brandon Sorsby has the next highest carries for them at 20, right? Or distributing the ball on the outside. I think Houston's DBs are well set to do well in this game. It's just going to be about slowing down that run game and keeping the ball out of Corey Kiner's hands or making it fairly neutral. I mean, he's going to get his couple yards, but keeping it from having the big 20, 25, even a 15er, right? Keeping it manageable and making them work their way down the field one after the other. Because I think ultimately those blows, those body blows, will work into him some, right? Now, those are the 3 things I think Houston has to do to win this football game. Obviously, there are other avenues and things and could do, should do, be great if they scored 48. All that'd be fantastic. But I think they have to establish their own run game, make a play in this game early, and obviously contain Corey Kiner. Now, I want to talk about some matchups to keep an eye on as those things start to unfold and happen, because I think that will be also important. But before we get to that, I've got to talk to you about our buddies over at Robinhood, because with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. Set the new gold standards here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up for Robinhood.com/gold today. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, back here at Locked On Cougs, I'm telling you about matchups to watch in this game this weekend as you hope to see Houston knock out the Cincinnati Bearcats. I think the first one, just as it's important for Houston to establish the run, is to be watching Houston's young center Demetrius Pancake Hunter versus Dante the Godfather Corleone. Now, Pancake has grown as much as anyone on the offensive line thus far. Gigantic leaps from game 1 to game 3 for that unit. Pancake is the young center, redshirt center, but he's also a redshirt sophomore, I should say, center. He's also one of the highest ranked recruits to ever come through the university, at least the university's football program. You remember he was committed to Oklahoma out of high school and kind of fell into Houston's lap after Lincoln Riley left that program in the best way possible. He sat last year behind Jack Freeman for the most part. A couple spot starts while Freeman was injured, but it's finally Pancake's time to shine. It's been a couple years developing his body and getting ready for this, and he gets a test that he wanted in joining a Power 4 conference football program with Houston in Dante Corleone. Corleone is a future pro, and the only thing inhibiting that from happening was a scary offseason outside of football-related injury. Dante Corleone had blood clotting in his lungs over the offseason. And at first it was like, is he going to play football again? And I was like, is he going to play this year? Then it was like, is he going to play before October? And now it's like, is he going to come off the field? He's made a full recovery, a really dominant nose tackle up front. What's impressive about Corleone is, frankly, that a guy his size, 6'1", 320, very squatty looking, if we're being really honest, has the kind of quickness he has. Now, I'm still taking Pancake in this matchup. While Corleone did give Jack Freeman some fits last year, there's a lot of tape on him at this point, and frankly, Demetrius Pancake Hunter, he's got some quickness of his own, right? And so I'm still taking Pancake in this one. There's also bluntly opportunity for schematic double teams because of the 3-3-5 defense that Cincinnati will be running, to kind of shift some double teams or some combo blocks and get up to the next level and really kind of exacerbate what I think could be Houston's advantage. The other thing about this match makes it so key, though, is outside of Corleone, there's not a whole lot that concerns me in the box, at least in the starting box for Cincinnati. They're gonna have to roll safeties and stuff down if they get one-on-one blocks with Corleone, because honestly, that's kind of what they got going. He demands a double and triple team a lot of the time, right? Pancake Hunter is a future pro football player. Dante Corleone is a probably sooner, but also future pro football player. This is a matchup, if you're a line play guy, to keep an eye on. Houston wins this matchup. Houston wins this game. That's one, though, that I'm really excited to get to watch this weekend. Other one to look at, too, is kind of the inverse of this. Almost. Corey Kiner is the star running back, mentioned the opening segment of the show. Again, does all the workload, all the carries, all the yada, 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 right? Houston's defensive front is anchored by Keith Cooper. On top of Carlos Allen and Brandon Mack, those guys can make plays too. AJ Halsey too, but he's in the back half. AJ Holmes, what I was trying to think of, right? All make plays, but Keith Cooper has made plays at timely moments. There will be a 3rd and 3, a first down on a drive where Houston really needs to stop for a TFL or whatever. Corey Kiner has not been tackled for loss once this season. It's going to be really important for Houston's Keith Cooper to change that. Keith Cooper has 4 TFLs, the leader on the Houston Cougar roster, through 3 games. He needs to get at least one, if not a couple of those this weekend, to kind of help spur that Houston Cougar defense. He's the leader of that front. Again, I think he's also, if you keep mentioning future pros playing in this game, I think Keith Cooper's establishing that for himself this season, playing power conference football. Love that he came with Willie Fritz from Tulane. It makes this a lot more fun. But I do think that his play will bend the way that Cincinnati offensive line blocks and kind of if he can be successful early or he can be successful in important moments, make them account for him in a way that throws off the numbers a little bit. Cincinnati is bringing back longtime starter Philip Wilder, and I guess they think that's a good thing at right tackle, but that adds another rotating piece in what's been a revolving door, a lot of offensive linemen in and out for this group. And so while they run a couple different kinds of gap scheme to get kind of the ball, and I guess you could kind of argue that a gap scheme is actually more on the interior guys than a Keith Cooper, I still think Keith makes that big a difference in this game. Again, focused on line play. You guys know me at this point. But I think Keith Cooper can really help blow up some of those things and get that TFL, the first one against Corey Kinda this year, to kind of send them backwards and kind of get them reeling a little bit and make them one-dimensional. Because the inverse on this, when Houston's one-dimensional and throw the ball, I think they got advantages outside. I don't think that Cincinnati's receiving core has that with Houston's DBs in this game. So if Cooper can help take away the run game, I think that's going to be really important, really, really big deal for him. Last but not least, this is a matchup I always keep an eye on. So what does Houston quarterbacks Donovan Smith do against defensive coordinator from Cincinnati, Tyson Vate? Now, Coach Vate for them has been around a little bit, and he's in control of the defense, and his job will be to be confusing in the pass game for Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith's been making pre-snap reads and pre-snap calls, especially with the way that they do the headsets and stuff these days in modern college football. But I think the deal here will be that at some point Houston's going to have some run game established, and it'll be a safety in the box from some different angle. That puts it on Smith in a pre-snap scenario to be reading, okay, where is my cover three coming from? Who's flowing? Who's dropping? Who's coming? Those kinds of things, right? And the trick is really that what's going to happen there is in this 3-3-5, one of those three safeties, right? 3-3-5 means there's 5 DBs. 3 of them are technically safeties. 2 of them are technically corners, but that's more nuance as far as who's who on that. One of those technical safeties will have to come into the box, help with the run game, to be the 7th person in the box. That's going to now be on Donovan Smith to figure out where that person is and how to attack the coverage once that person's brought into the box. It should leave something open behind him, or at least more open than it was. The back half of the defense, Cincinnati, has a lot of question marks thus far. Pitt took advantage of it. Teams took advantage of it a year ago. If Houston can do that and really be a multifaceted offense that keeps the defense guessing, it's going to be a big day for the offense. The question there will be is, can Donovan get the job done? He's looked like he's more of himself in the Rice game, kind of, and he threw a high completion percentage against Oklahoma, but didn't get the ball downfield. Houston needs the best versions of Donovan from a year ago, the guy that completed like 14 straight passes against West Virginia, right? That's the guy they need in this game. I'll tell you right now, the Donovan Smith they had against West Virginia last year will win this football game on Saturday. But he's going to have that kind of a performance, and we know he can. Again, I'm citing himself from a year ago, but he's going to have that kind of a performance against this defense. The other thing that's working in Donovan's favor is his receivers are more talented than the guys covering them. His tight ends are more talented in terms of pass concepts than the guys covering them. The coverage is aggressive. They will be, undercutting routes and taking chances. If he puts the ball out in front where guys need to have it, he could have a big day passing the football. Now, that's honestly somewhat assuming that the pre-snap read is pass the football at all. Sometimes what could be a win for Donovan is on 1st and 10, if the coverage dictates it, to hand that thing off, right? Or run that zone read, and if it's your turn to keep it, right? He can run it himself. I think he really can, but his reads in those situations are going to be key in this game. I know people have been skeptical of him in the past, or people have been down on him because it's not been the best start to the season. Certainly not the step forward we were hoping for. But when you remember, he did not play in the spring. There are no preseason games like there are in the pros, and there are no preseason scrimmages like there are at high-end high schools and things like that. There's not exhibition games or whatever, right? He's kind of getting his feet under him, and hopefully that starts to show itself in a more comfortable Donovan Smith this weekend. Donovan Smith went to match up versus the defense coordinator, Tyson Vate. Houston's got a really good chance to win this game. Now, I want to talk about what's on the line and what's at stake here, because both these programs weirdly enter this game in a very similar place. But before we get to that, both of them are also trying to build championship caliber programs, and that takes passion, that takes drive, that takes patience. The formula of winning championships, but it's also what the formula is for keeping your ride or die alive. Even when it's everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether it's speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. Always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. The parts you need, the price you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep it right out at ebaymotors.com. That's only exclusive apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Also, as always, make sure you talk to our friends at FanDuel. In fact, I say as always because we talk to you about FanDuel a lot. They are America's number one sportsbook after all. But right now, got something a little bit different. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers bet $5 get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you can watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and then you can cancel it any time. Visit FanDuel.com to download America's number one sports book. All right, Parker Angel Locked on Coogs here, and I want to make sure we reiterate that Houston should beat or could beat or should, I'm predicting them to beat, I should say, Cincinnati this weekend. And I think it's interesting to look at this, because the Cincinnati game, as the first Big 12 game of the season, offers a measuring stick this weekend. I don't know why my graphic I'm now seeing has C and C spread out a little bit. Maybe we're breaking them apart. We'll go with that. But what I do think is important here is a couple things. One, 2021 was the most successful season in any real way to measure it for Dana Holgorsen. Right, good recruiting class afterwards. Got to play Auburn, the Birmingham Bowl. Strong season. Got to the American Athletic Conference Championship game. People that want to talk down and all time about how easy that schedule was that year, whatever, yada yada. But it was the most successful year that tenure. In that American Athletic Conference Championship game, they played Cincinnati, right? And they played Cincinnati, and Cincinnati won fairly handily. Won on the college football playoff. I think, honestly. People were kind of down on Holgorsen, if they weren't already at that point, because they didn't think the game should have been as far apart as it was. Interestingly, you fast forward to last season. Cincinnati was struggling in the Big 12 just like Houston was, if not worse. And then Cincinnati turned around and had their only conference win of last season be against Houston in Houston. Yikes. Not great, to say the least. And after the game, Dana Holgorsen said something to the effect of, that's just Big 12 football. Stop me if you've heard this before, but Dana Holgorsen blamed it on being Big 12 football. And that was when I kind of lost it. The post-game show on that one, admittedly, I was angry. I cannot believe that the excuse made after losing to a bad Cincinnati team was that they're in the Big 12, because they had been in the Big 12 for the exact same 5 minutes Houston had at that point, and they had had a very similar program a couple years prior. And you could argue that because Houston had the same coaching staff and things like they'd had the American Conference Championship game and Cincinnati did not, that they had every reason and right to believe they were in a better place than Cincinnati last year. And they very clearly, after that game, were not. Now, things have changed. We've got Willie Fritz here, and I'm very excited about the Willie Fritz era. But this serves as another similar bar of measurement for this program and that program. Again, 2021, they were both at the top of the American Athletic Conference, inarguably, right? They both are two of the four expansion teams in the Big 12 and frankly, in the non-power conference seizure that the conference laid out, right? They took up Houston, Cincinnati, Central Florida, and BYU, not power conference teams, but turned them into them, right? Comparable. Both programs are coming from schools that, let's be honest, have illustrious basketball resumes and histories and are working on the football side. I would argue Houston's got the better football side by and large, if you go back far enough in history books. And they got a Heisman Trophy winner and Andre Ware and all those kind of things too. But I think the layperson that sits in, I don't know, Portland, Oregon would say, hey, that's a basketball school, right? So they got that culture piece of it too. Both programs are convinced it's time to go through with this rebuild and trying to do it right. Houston did it by stripping the staff and starting over. Cincinnati did it, admittedly, by reinvesting in a guy in staff, Satterfield. So both programs entered the conference. Both programs look to grow in the conference. And both programs had disappointing years a year ago and are looking to make improvements, right? Houston's might be qualitative because of how much turnover there's been, but Houston's looking to get better. Cincinnati is looking to get better, and frankly, the only conference game they won a year ago was this one. Getting better for them has to start with beating Houston again. Getting better for Houston has to start with beating Cincinnati because you should have done it a year ago, right? And so with that being the case, I think this serves as, there are kind of big stakes here on both of these teams because Houston's got every right to feel like this should be a game they win. Yes, this is a conference win, but it was also conference winning a group of 5 days, right? Yes, this is a opponent with talented NFL guys at a couple of spots, but they've also got some really wishy-washy, high-low, not sure what they got there kind of guys at a few other spots, right? Cincinnati probably feels similar about us and yada, 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 whatever, right? But on the whole, I think that Houston has every right to think they should win this game. And the next step for this program is going to be winning games that you should win, not dropping them and blaming it on Big 12 play. We left that and that guy in the past. To move forward, you got to do it this weekend. You got to start with Cincinnati this weekend. Start Big 12 play 1-0, and I think they've got a real shot. Not just because I talk myself into it by every Friday, but because they really do. Cincinnati, at the time of this recording, is a 3.5-point favorite on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and I really think that's entirely because they're at home. If this game were a neutral site, I think it'd be Houston by 3. This game were in Houston, it might be Houston by 6.5. Right? I really think if Houston had a chance to play this guy anywhere else, it'd be pretty much easy street. You're hoping to make that play early and take the crowd out of it because that's about the only chance I really see at this point. Now, admittedly, I'm an open homer. I am not one to hide from that. You're not going to get me to hide from that. But 3.5-point home favorite kind of makes me think I'm not the only one that sees this one coming. Tell me in the comments down below what you think is happening in this game on Saturday, what you expect, what you foresee, or if you think a different matchup or must-have kind of thing has to happen or has to be won this weekend. Locked on Coogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It means your team every day. For a second listen to the day today, please go listen to Locked On Big 12, where Drake Toll breaks down the whole conference, ins, outs, and all of the above. Thanks again for listening. Again, Locked On Coogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Go Coogs.